Hello everyone. I'm Jyoti Thakur, PR HR Manager at Legal Vehicle Law Forum. I welcome you all for today's webinar. And before going to begin with the introduction and further things of this forum, so I just want to quote something here that is essential for all the law professionals. I just want to quote: law schools taught me one thing, how to take two situations that are exactly the same and show how they are different. So, I would like to tell about the our forum. So, we at Legal Eagle Law Forum endeavor to promote legal education and awareness through various legal education activities. We believe in encouraging young law students and helping them resolve the gap between those come from a legal background and those who do not. As an outstanding advocate, litigator, and advocate Ishant V. Tambi. It's my great honor and pleasure to introduce about him. Advocate Ishant Tambi, practicing advocate at Bombay High Court Nagpur bench. Ishant Tambi is a young, dynamic, and first-generation lawyer. He has completed his schooling from Modern School, Nagpur, and done at graduation in BSL LLB from Indian Law Society's Law College, Pune, which is amongst the India's top 10 law college. He started his practice from the chamber of Senior Advocate S.K. Mishra and is currently assisting him in case at the Honorable Bombay High Court. Having 2 years of standing at the bar, he himself has appeared before various tribunals and courts, including the Bombay High Court, Nagpur bench. Apart from having more than 50 appearances in just 2 years of practice, Ishant Tambi regularly shares his views on various forums on central and state laws, recently being the constitutional aspects of the central government for farm bills. He is also an active member of Manthan, an organization which conducts monthly talks on nationalist topics by inviting eminent speakers. Today's survey will enlighten us on the topic of Code of Criminal Procedure in light of Constitution of India 1950. So you can proceed with the session.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Before I start, I would just like to quote a famous quote of Justice Hidayatullah, the luminary in law. What he said that, and I quote, "Law is an ocean and I am still a student." So law evolves daily. So we have to understand how law evolves with the society. Each and there have been some kind of judgment is there which reciprocates to what previous judgment was there. So I would just start with my presentation today. Yes, to start, the Code of Criminal Procedure 1973 in light of Constitution of India 1950. So what does Constitution of India 1950 states? No authority created under the Constitution is supreme. It is the Constitution which is supreme. This was held in Golaknath's case versus State of Punjab. So no law which is being made in India is supreme than Constitution. So each and every law, be it the Indian Penal Code, be it the Code of Criminal Procedure, be it the NDPS Act, the PMLA Act, all these acts, they reflect guiding principle of Constitution. So we can say Constitution of India is a current day Bhagavad Gita. It describes the liberty, is the rights of the citizens in India as well as their duties under 51A of Constitution. Moving forward to the evolution of Code of Criminal Procedure 1973. The Code of Criminal Procedure, how does this has evolved during the years from the ancient period till the current modern day? We have read in our history books, many of you may have learned or heard this about Chanakya, his Arthashastra and all. So there were criminal law system which prevailed during Chanakya, and it was still there in the era of Shivaji. Till the first codified law system, for the first codified criminal law system came into existence in the year 1861. So before that, all the criminal law system was according to the administration, the culture, the traditions, and the rituals and beliefs of the people living. And this is how the law is made. No law, even the constitution, is based on the traditions, the rituals, the beliefs of the culture of the country. So you will find that constitution outlines each of them, just like 125 of CRPC. I would come at a later stage for 125, but we have to see this. So currently, how did it evolve? It evolved from the period of Chanakya till Shivaji in 1861. The first codified criminal law system, as the Code of Criminal Procedure was there. Indian Law Commission was established in 1830 under the chairmanship of Lord Macaulay. So the 1861, the first criminal code. Second, it was replaced in 1898. So 1861 was replaced in 1898, and 1898 was replaced in 1973. But it was enforced in 1969. So during 1969 and 73, there was extensive deliberation about what would be the new code, how it would be there, because these codes of 1898 was made way before the independence. So during, as we know that we as an Indian, when we were being ruled by Britishers, we were not given that much right and liberty. We had to fight for it, right? So in 41st report, there were certain suggestions, there were certain recommendations. Few of them were that pre-trial should be given to the accused as per the natural justice. Secondly, there should not be delay in investigation, and also there should not be delay in trial. Third, procedural aspect should not be complicated. This is one of the major recommendations. And fourthly, judiciary should be separated from executive. So judiciary and executive, though they are the part and they are the pillars of the democracy, but they should be separated. They should not be influential. And this is how these major recommendations were taken into consideration after 1973. The new code, it is known as the Code of Criminal Procedure 1973. So like I said, as the society evolves, so does the laws. So there were amendments to the code right from 1978, year 1978 to 2013. There have been several amendments. Now, before I move to my next slide, when does this criminal law system or the constitution comes into play? When does this come into play? Firstly, we know when we are born in a country like India, your constitutional right starts from the time 00 hours you are born. If you are born at age 7, then from that particular point of time your right under constitution starts. So the constitution plays a very vital role in each and everybody's life. And when the CRPC, the Code of Criminal Procedure, is set into motion, and when this comes into play, this comes into play when a criminal activity takes place. So what is this? First, we have to understand the law system or the criminal law system which is prevailing in India. In criminal law system in India is basically divided into two parts. Firstly, the Code of Criminal Procedure. This is just one code of Indian Penal Code. Doesn't mean that this is the only criminal law system or this is only the bifurcation. The Indian Penal Code is just an example I have given. There have been certain legislation, the NDPS Act, the POCSO Act, the Atrocities Act. All these are the penal provisions. And the Code of Criminal Procedure 1973 describes the procedural aspect of it. So we have to understand the offences are defined under IPC, but the proceedings are given under CRPC. So they cannot be read into isolation. I would just say just they are like Ram and Lakshman. So if penal provision is there, then there had to be procedure to it. So when does this set into motion? It is set into the motion while when instance when offence or a criminal activity takes place, and you go and register a first information report. So first information report is described in 154 of the code. Right. So 154, it does not have a plain meaning. If a person who is not a law graduate and goes and takes the CRPC, if he search like first information report, lodging of first information report, you will find it. So what are the wordings on 154? It is to be understood that it states information in cognizable cases. Right. So see, this is one of the example. Many of you may have seen, may not have seen, but I have brought this for who have not seen yet. So first information report. This is the first information report under section 154 of CRPC. Just I said, the Code of Criminal Procedure. In the offences, you can read it. Bharatiya Dand Sahita 1860, that is Indian Penal Code 1860. There have been sections related to it. In which district it is there, in which what police station it comes under, which year it has taken place, what is the FIR number, all these details are there in first information report. So, like I said, the first information reports comes under 154, as you have seen here. But there is a twist to it. So, in Lalita Kumari's judgment, many of you have heard this. In Lalita Kumari's judgment, what Supreme Court has held that section 154 of criminal procedure, if the information discloses commission of a cognizable offence and no preliminary inquiry is permissible in such situation, then FIR needs to be registered. But if the information you have received over a phone call, for example, you have received the information over a phone call, and it does not disclose the cognizable offence, then the police authority has to investigate, and if he thinks that according to his judgment that no, this is a case for cognizable offence, then the FIR is registered against whosoever it is. I know this would be something confusing for all of us, and this would be a bouncer like, bro, what is going on? This is what are cognizable cases. So, under the Schedule 1 of the Code of Criminal Procedure, there have been certain bifurcations. So, an offence can be bailable, non-cognizable, non-bailable, cognizable, non-cognizable, non-bailable. These are certain types of bifurcation which have been used. But what are these offences? What is bailable offence? So, bailable offence is when the bail is granted as a rule. An offence which is bailable, you can refer to the schedule. If it says, okay, this is bailable section, bail is granted as a rule. In non-bailable section, what is non-bailable section? Non-bailable section are those in which there is bail is it does not come under bailable section. So bail is not given. Cognizable offences are those where the police authorities do not require warrant to arrest. We can this is not an Ekta Kapoor serials like we go and okay, boss, he has come with some warrant. If he has come with warrant, then it is a non-cognizable offence. But if he doesn't come with a warrant and you ask for a warrant, then he would say, boss, this is a cognizable offence, we do not require any warrant and we will take picking up and thrown away. Right? So, these are the four differentiations. These are the four offences, I would say, major offences, which has been bifurcated. Now, you would be thinking what this madman is saying, that under 154, when the FIR is registered for cognizable cases, and if the cognizable case is a non-bailable offence, then a person should not be released on bail. Then how come all these persons who commit a cognizable offence are released on bail? Then for that, you have to refer Section 438 and 439 of Code of Criminal Procedure. So what does Section 438 of the Code of Criminal Procedure states? It says that when any cognizable and non-bailable offence is registered and there is an apprehension that the person is getting arrested, he may apply to High Court or the Court of Sessions for anticipatory bail. If you have an apprehension to it that you may be get arrested, then in that case you may apply for anticipatory bail. And for those who get arrested, who have been held by police officers, what should they do? They may apply for bail under Section 439. So what does 439 say? If a person is in custody, then the High Court and the Court of Session have the special powers. So these special powers are given under the court to the High Court and the Court of Session only to release a person on bail. So most of the advocates, we write that application under Section 439 for release of the applicant on bail. This is the general practice. But if you are released on bail, don't think that you have an absolute authority. Boss, this is not the kind of thing. There is a two-liner to Section 439 Clause 2. What it says, this is very important. Section 439 Clause 2 says, if you are being given, you have been granted bail, your bail can be cancelled or you can be taken into custody. This is the special power also. This is also a special power. This is what you need to have understand. So for 438 also, if you have applied for 438, what does court takes into consideration? There are 5 things which the court has to take into consideration, which have been defined under Section 438. First, the nature and the gravitation of the accusation. What is the allegation which has been against you, and what is the gravity of it? Secondly, is there any antecedents to yours? Do you have any past records? Have you committed any offence of 302, 307, 306 in your past? Not just, I'm just giving an example, 302 and 306. And thirdly, any likelihood of you to humiliate the reputation of the applicant. If you are released on anticipatory bail, will you tamper with the evidences? Will you going to flee away from the country just like Vijay Mallya or Nirav Modi? You cannot do that. There have been certain restrictions, so the court has to take into consideration. Now, if you think that you are out, then 439(2) would be there. होशियारी दिखाई कि 439(2) के अंदर में कर दूंगा बोली. That is what these are something. These are the practices. I'm just letting you know. Further, we move to Article 14, 19, 21 of the Constitution. I think this is something each one of us have read in our Constitution. Each one of our teacher or every law teacher of Constitution says, भैया इसको पढ़ लो, ये आपके एग्जाम में ही आने वाला है, ये आपको 5 बार आया होगा, 10 बार आया होगा. This is something which we should know, just not for the purpose of study, but to understand and relate it to the current scenario. Article 14, what it says, equality before law. So each and every individual is equal before the law. There cannot be a discrimination on the basis of anything, caste, creed, gender, religion, nothing. Article 19, this is self-explanatory. The right to freedom of speech, etc. So, right to freedom of speech, we have to understand this is also not an absolute right. Under Part 3 of the Constitution, but we are not absolute right. There have been certain reasonable restrictions to it. You cannot go on the streets and demonstrate and say that Bharat tere tukde honge, inshallah, inshallah. These are not the things which is to be taken into consideration. There are some reasonable restrictions to it. Thirdly, Article 21 of the Constitution. So, Article 21 is also of very paramount, which has been reiterated by Supreme Court in various judgments. Protection of life and personal liberty. if you go under the section, the court would ask you, the High Court or the section court, why it is should be curtailed. Why person's personal liberty should be curtailed. So it is to be used very judiciously. Now, just like I said, all these articles, they are to be understood. They have to be. There are certain. They are not absolute, but there are certain reasonable restrictions to it, and a procedure established by law in which your liberty may be curtailed. Then, if you don't think that bail, it is Article 21. The Supreme Court in one of the cases of Ranjan Yadav versus CBI had granted bail and had vehemently and have observed that the bail depends upon the facts and circumstances of each case. That there is an absolute rule to it. There cannot be an absolute rule. Your personal liberty is curtailed, therefore you should be given bail. No. Moving forward to this. So, if your personal liberty is curtailed and it is curtailed with an illegal or with an intention to restrain you from doing anything, so then you have a medicine under 32 of the Constitution as well as Section 226 of the Constitution. So we have been hearing about Article 32. There are several petitions under Article 32 seeking direction to the police authorities to for if a person has been illegally detained, then he should be released. So Article 32, what it states that remedies for enforcement of rights conferred by this part. Part means the part 3 of the Constitution. So habeas corpus, there are 5 writs which are both mentioned in 226 as well as 32. So 5 writs are mentioned. This is the basic thing which each and every law graduate knows. What is the first? That the habeas corpus. Second is mandamus. Third is prohibition. Fourth is quo warranto, and fifth is certiorari. So habeas corpus is, we have recently heard it many times. So habeas corpus means when you are being illegally be detained, and he should be removed. He should be released. This is the order. This is the writ. Under this writ petition, a person can go and seek his liberty. And what is mandamus? Mandamus is a Latin word which means we command. So it's for the public machinery to work for the public rather than withholding their right. So when if there is a failure to perform a mandatory duty imposed on the state, then you can go for writ of mandamus. Then third is prohibition. Prohibition, which simply means a stay. If you have been aggrieved by some of the judgment or some order of I would say the inferior court, you may apply for prohibition, a stay before either before the High Court or the Supreme Court under 32 and 226. Fourth is quo warranto. Quo warranto means under what warrant you are having or you are holding the public office. When a person who attains a superannuation and he is illegally he is sitting over his office, so the Supreme Court or the High Court can ask, what authority is being given to you to sit in the office? So if there has been gross errors in jurisdiction, or if there is a transfer from one court to another in the inferior courts, then person may apply for Article 32 and 226 that this case should be transferred from here to here. And this is what basically 32 and 226 says. But in the recent times, some of us think that यार कोई violation है, there is some there is some acts which is violative to the Constitution of India. But then why? Then we should apply to under 32 or 226. So recently that problem is being solved by Justice D.Y. Chandrachud. Recently judgment he had remarked that you can challenge the central laws as well under 226, and the High Court has power to struck down such laws, the central laws. Now these are the 5 rights. So if you are illegally, or if you are malifiedly, or if you are falsely arraigned in a crime, so you can just don't think that yaar ab to life barbad ho gaya mera. Just go and reach out to High Court under 482 of CRPC. What is 482 of CRPC? This is something which we need to keep in our mind. I would discuss this also in future, in next 2 slides. So this section provides inherent powers to High Court to make such order as may be necessary to give effect to any order under this code, or to prevent the abuse of process of any court, or otherwise to secure the ends of justice. So to secure the ends of justice, or to prevent the abuse of process of any court, you can apply under 482. The powers are inherent powers, and they are wide powers given to the High Court, so which should be used in rarest of the rare situation, right? So now see this particular slide which I have written, that Article 226 of the Constitution and 482 of Code of Criminal Procedure. What does it state? If these 2 powers, so we have to see Article 226 is one power, Section 482 is another power. So if 2 powers come together, so there would be a third power to it. What would be the power? The High Court would have jurisdiction, a vast jurisdiction, to decide or adjudicate the matter which has been placed before it. So as you know, Constitution is supreme, so it is one power. 482, it is an inherent power. So if these 2 are clubbed together, then there is a vast area of adjudication before the High Court, which we have been recently seeing. You might be thinking why I am discussing this, why I am stating this particular 226 and 482. So just before Diwali, instead of receiving happy Dhanteras messages, we were receiving messages that Arnab Goswami is being released on bail. So yes, you are right. I would be discussing on this case of Arnab Goswami. This time, in Arnab Goswami's case, what exactly had happened was, this is for all those who have, they are not law graduates. For the common people, is to understand that what happened in Arnab Goswami's case. So in Arnab Goswami's case, firstly, when offence was registered in 2018, way back in 2018. Then after that, in 2020, there is an arrest. And in between 2018 and 2020, a summary report is being given. And a summary report is given to the magistrate, and there is nothing after that. And he has been suddenly taken away from his home in 4th November. So this was according to his advocate, learned senior counsel Harish Salve, who had appeared. According to him, this was he had applied for writ of habeas corpus. Just like I said, according to him, it was an illegal detention. So he should have been released on interim bail. And then as he was there in Bombay, so he had to apply before Bombay Principal Bench. There were extensive arguments to it, and then the Bombay High Court, relying on the judgment of State of Telangana versus Habib Jalani, Habib Jalani. So in that case, Supreme Court had said that it is to be used in rarest of the rare situation. So while rejecting it, once that it got rejected by the Bombay High Court, Arnab Goswami approached to Supreme Court under 32. So what Supreme Court observed, the High Court had failed to exercise its jurisdiction under 482 and also had failed to appreciate the fact that from the contents of the FIR itself, there is no prima facie offence made out for 306, that is abatement of suicide. So what the Supreme Court had observed, I would like to quote because it is very important for all of us to know. Just I said, Article 21 is of paramount. It is paramount and it is very important to understand what 21 is, and it is being reiterated. I would like to read before you all. That human liberty is a precious constitutional value which is undoubtedly subject to regulation of validity enacted legislation. So it cannot be an absolute, but there are legislations to handle it. As such, as a citizen is subject to the edicts of the criminal law and procedure, Section 482 recognizes the inherent power, just as I said to you, the power of High Court to make such orders as necessary to give effect to the provision of CRPC or to prevent the abuse of process of any court or otherwise to secure the ends of justice. The decision of this court required High Court in exercising jurisdiction entrusted upon under 482 of the Act in circumsection. It emphasizes the High Court must exercise this power with a sense of restraint. The decision of this court has been founded on the basic principle of due enforcement of criminal law should not be obstructed by the accused taking recourse. So here it was, here I will point out in the rarest of the rarest situation I was just talking about. So this is that observation. The public interest in ensuring that due investigation of crime is protected by ensuring that the inherent power of the High Court is exercised with caution. That indeed is one in the end of this spectrum. The other end of the spectrum is that on the other hand, the spectrum is equally important. The recognition of 482 of the power inherent in the High Court to prevent the abuse process to secure the end of justice is a valuable and safeguard the liberty of the individual. The Code of Criminal Procedure 1898, just as mentioned before, the evolution of 1898, what it is mentioned over here that the Code of Criminal Procedure 1898 was enacted by legislator which was not subject to the constitutional rights. There were no constitutional rights then. Yet it recognized the inherent power of 561A under section 561A. Post-independence, the recognition by Parliament of inherent power, the High Court must be construed as an aid to preserve the constitutional value of liberty. So, constitutional value of liberty of each and every individual. The writ of liberty runs through the fabric of constitution. The need to ensure the fair investigation. So these were the recommendations which I told you. The need to ensure the fair investigation of crime is undoubtedly important in itself because it protects one level the rights of the victim and at a more fundamental level the societal interest in ensuring the crime is investigated and dealt with in accordance with law. On the other hand, the misuse of the criminal law is matter of High Court, which High Court and the lower court in this country must be alike. In the present case, so here what the Supreme Court has observed, the High Court could not have been cognizant to specific ground which is being raised before it by the appellant that he was being targeted. We all know the Arnab Goswami was being targeted since April 2020 for his views on TV. This is also which is being observed that he was targeted as a part of series of occurrences which have been taking place since April 2020. So, prima facie, just like I said, prima facie there was no offence made out which is being observed by Supreme Court. So, further it reads that liberty across human eras is as tenuous can be. Liberty survives by the vigilance of our citizens on the cacophony of the media. This is the style of writing of Justice D.Y. Chandrachud. So basically what he said that there ought to have been some I would say the Bombay High Court ought to have observed that there was no prima facie case. So even after a summary report was submitted. Now what is a summary? We have to understand this. A summary, B summary and C summary. This is being this is not given in your CRPC or IPC section. You as a law graduate teach, there are no definition about what is an A summary. So A summary or B summary or C summary, these kind of summary have been defined under the Bombay Police Manual. What is an A summary? A summary is where evidence is not sufficient but the offence is made out. So just this was the case of Arnab Goswami, that there was no evidence. Though there was an abetment to suicide, we can see, but there was no evidence against him. And what is B summary? Where the allegations are false and no evidence is found against the accused person after investigation. So after investigation, so we have to understand what is the investigation, what is the section for investigation. It is 173. So under 173, final report is given. In section 1, under section 173(8), the additional charge sheet can be filed. So final report is equals to charge sheet under 173. And what is C summary? C summary where the FIR is found to be based on mistake of fact itself. So there is no allegations, no evidence against any accused person. It is based merely on the mistake of fact. So in the mistake of fact, the FIR is registered. Now, moving forward, just like I said in the starting, a law is made with certain legislations are made with certain social as well as societal interest. India is a democratic country, so there the law evolves with the society. So we have to understand that this, just I said before that 125 CRPC and IPC, they both go hand in hand, but this section of Code of Criminal Procedure 125 is an exception. Here only the proceedings are given. Here it does not describe about what the penal section should be. There cannot be a penal section levied on it. And what does 125 of CRPC says? So 125 of CRPC says order of maintenance of wives, children and parents. If any person who is having sufficient means neglects or refuses to pay, wife who is unable to maintain herself, legitimate or illegitimate child, married or unmarried, or who is being physically or having have mental abnormality to maintain itself, and thirdly the father and mother. So all these three categories of people can seek maintenance from the magistrate filing an application under section 125 CRPC. Now you would ask, and there would be a question put before you, and you would think that just before few minutes ago he said that Article 14 of the Constitution states there should not be the equality before law. Which means there should not be any discrimination amongst people. Then why 125 is not violated? The answer to it is that there is already a plea pending before Supreme Court to decide over it, that is 125 can, under 125 a husband can also claim maintenance from the wife or from parents. So this is something which is unanswered yet. So this is what are the takeaways from this particular, I would say, the particular presentation of mine. So firstly, Constitution is supreme. So from the recommendation or from the criminal law system which has been evolved, there have been recommendations. All these recommendations which were there are reflected, or there are mentions from the Constitution of India. There have been reflections over each and every code, each and every law you take out. There cannot be a single thing which you would find that it is against the Constitution. So Constitution is supreme. There cannot be a argument to it that no, Constitution is not supreme. It is the Parliament which is being supreme. this is not the right. I guess this was dealt with in Keshav and Bharati's case. Each one of you should read it. Is 700 pages judgment. So section 438 of the code is for anticipatory bail. Section 439 is for regular bail. Liberty of the individual cannot be curtailed unless there is a procedure established by law. And under Article 32 and 22, 26, there have been 5 writs that you should know, you should understand why these 5 and how these 5 writs can be used. Article 226 and 482, just like I said, I gave an example of Arnab Goswami. There have been, it gives a wide power to High Court and enhance its jurisdiction to deal with the matter or to adjudicate the matter present before it. And lastly, law evolves daily. So you all of you should read legal news either from the bar and bench or from live law. All of you, as the on the forum of legal, I would just suggest for all the law graduates that you should be in touch with law daily. In fact, I should use this mantra on myself as well. But as an advocate, you should know, or as a law graduate, you should read it. Law evolves daily. This is something which is, I would give you a mantra that you should use this. And then I would just say that the constitution of a country is never in one go. There has been developments and it is a continuous process. This is not what I am saying, this is the wording of Justice A.K. Ganguly. In one of the landmark judgments, he had said this. Over to you. I've given all my views to you. I hope you would understand if you have understood it in a proper way.
Thank you so much, sir, for your patience, words, and explanation that you've explained from the initial part, like Ishwanandi Bharati case, and then the Article 14, Article 21, Article 90, the CRPC, the combination with the, the Constitution, all. So thank you so much for the explanation. So, sir, I received some questions. So, yeah. So, with your kind permission, can I proceed with the question?
Yes, please.
Alright, sir. So, the question is, sir, what is charge and how it is formed, and is there any change in the procedure in forming charges over course of time? Can the charge be altered, and what is the procedure for it?
Yes, charges. So you have to understand that there have been just like I said, 154 is the starting. So when an FIR registered, then there is for for charge sheet filing of final report under section 173. After that, then you go before the magistrate, you submit it, the magistrate take the cognizance of it, then the charges are framed. Before framing of charge, there have been an extensive argument before the two advocates, and if at all the magistrate thinks fit according to him that no, this charge is something which is not is not as per the story of the prosecution, or there is no charge sheet, there is no evidence in the charge sheet which states that this charges or this section which is being mentioned in the FIR is not filled out, then it may automatically be it is for the magistrate to decide it whether the charge is to be if the charge is made out or not. It is for the magistrate to do.
Question is, how is the sentence of imprisonment executed by the authorities?
So it is once the conviction is there have been certain remedies to it. So if you are convicted, then the process would be you will be taken to jail. Then if 302 is there, then it is life imprisonment depending upon how much the gravity is there. For just like Kasab, they had it was for imprisonment, for either for imprisonment or death penalty. So for death penalty, there have been various, I would say there have been limited cases where death penalty is given. So if you are accused, or if you have been a person who have been charged or convicted under Section 302 for murder. So in that case, you have been taken into jail. They have their own routine to follow. So I cannot describe it that how the process it follows, but after conviction, you are put into jail, and they have their own set of rules. The Bombay Jail Rules Act is there. You can read that act, and it would help you.
Okay, thank you, sir. The next question is, let hundreds go unpunished, but never punish an innocent person. What are your thoughts on this presumption looking at the current criminal system?
So this is something. It is not for me to decide or for a person, but it is for the court to decide. It varies from situation to situation. You may be a person who is being illegally detained, or who has been prosecuted, or who has been an authority is being used to weaponize you or go behind you, just like Arnab Goswami. But there are cases wherein you have to weigh. You have to weigh according to the situation, and it depends on case to case basis. So if you think that you are a person who is an innocent person, so everyone is innocent. This is something which you understand, that each and everyone is innocent unless proved guilty. So it is for the court to decide. Sitting at this position and giving an opinion of mine, I would say I would interfere with the jurisdiction of the courts.
Okay. Thank you, sir, for the answer. Last question. There are various lacking in the investigation by police. Think are main reason behind it, and how can they be resolved as this lacking proved to be a fatal to prosecution cases?
So first, it is a two-part question. Firstly, if the for the first part, I would say the police authorities, to be blunt, they do not know what sections is to be leveled against or what crime. Before they understand it, they make their own thoughts to it. So firstly, they have to think in a way that okay, this is the story. Some of the police authorities or some of the officials, they do not know till date what section is to be leveled or for what thing. So for them to they just go, they just give exam, they just read things. Just we as a law graduates do a day before we read each and everything and write in the examination. They also do the same thing. But when it comes to practical approach of it, there has to be a training. In a way, the training should be given to them that okay, if this kind of case has happened, what you would do. So there has to be, this is correct, that there has to be a change in the system of how the police officers should be trained. They do not apply their mind in a proper way, and due to which a good case can also turn against you.
Okay. Thank you, sir, for the answer. All the question answers. So now it's time for the vote of thanks. So thank you so much, sir, for giving us informative coverage on the topic of Code of Criminal Procedure in light of the Constitution of India 1950. So if there is any, you have all the answers. So we have cleared our doubts on the topic by answering the questions many of our viewers had asked. Also, I have to thank to the legal team. They have worked in the background to ensure the smooth and flow of the session. So it was our absolute pleasure to have you with us, sir, today. Thank you so much, sir, once again.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for inviting me over here and giving me an opportunity to speak before you all. I hope you would take into consideration what I just said, that please go and read each and everything which has been available to you. Thank you so much.